How are you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi. Welcome to another episode of Tier Talk. Guys, great dialogue coming our way today. We're going to have a dialogue that is going to be about being a mentor to myself. Basically, even milestones. Because don't forget, like in my thing, yes, I started career as a rookie, but then I became a supervisor. I crossed into admin. Each one of those milestones, looking back at it, man, I wish I had some of the advice that technically I didn't have when crossing into these milestones or crossing into this profession. And be honest with you guys, when I came into corrections, we didn't have even these resources that we do now, like the social media platforms and the mentors that you could find even on Keepers of Chaos and Correctional Officer Brotherhood. So the basic show is pretty much what we would have said to ourselves yesterday, being our own mentor. And I have two guests that are going to partner with me on this show. We have Connie Alleyne. I'll introduce her shortly. And we also have Gary York is back. He was out feeding calves. He has a farm. And now he's back. He's done feeding the cows, freshly showered, I assume. And he is ready to dive into this topic as well. And the reason why I picked us two, well, us three, myself, Connie, and Gary York, is obviously we've all been rookies, but we've also taken multiple journeys in the profession, which I believe adds to what we have told what we would have told ourselves as we've gone through each milestone. So, guys, the show right now is sponsored to you by three entities. We have American Military University. It's a great online school. If you guys get a chance, please check out American Military University. They're very supportive of what we do in corrections, supportive of what we do on Tier Talk. So please give them a chance. Give them a reach if you're looking for a higher degree. We also have Guardian RFID, from inmate tracking and cell checks to cloud-based business and artificial intelligence. Guardian RFID digitally transforms jails, prisons, and juvenile detention facilities of every size. Visit guardianrfid.com for more information. And guys, they also have a YouTube channel where we also put content up there. So if you get a chance, check out Guardian RFID on YouTube. And we also have Shea. Now, guys, I'm getting a lot of people messaging me on the spelling of that. It's CEIA, but it's pronounced Shea. But it's CEIA USA. And it's the world leading weapons, cell phone, and contraband detection system manufacturer for corrections. For more information, contact Joe Vasquez at 440-561-7615. He's a subject matter expert, passionate about our industry, and he will take good care of you. All right. First, let's bring on the famous author from The Cage Was Her Cocoon, which is now available on Amazon, Connie. Hey, Connie, how's your podcast going?
The podcast is going good.
Connie, you're not muted. You're not muted.
I know that. Oh my God. What? I'm like, what are you talking about? I know I'm not muted. The podcast is going good. Listenership continues to grow, so I appreciate that. I get good emails and questions about the podcast content and folks who want to further the discussions. So, that's good. I think it just goes to show that there is a great deal of interest in what we do and our different perspectives. So that's just a really great thing. So The Cage Was Her Cocoon continues to sell. It's got a life of its own right now. And then, of course, there's the Civilian Corrections Academy, which is continuing to grow. I've got a little sales team that kind of just makes their rounds, and that's been just a beautiful thing to see, that when you can create something that is going to do good for the industry and people actually receive it in that way, it's just really good. And from that has come like some mentoring opportunities and coaching opportunities where I get to see what it's like through the lens of folks that live in other states, right? Because I've got the New York perspective, the Connecticut perspective, I get Jersey from you, but like getting the Minnesota perspective or the Ohio perspective and the Virginia perspective, like it's just very different. I think sometimes we might take for granted just how progressive we are in other states. So, it's all goodness, though. I'm definitely appreciating the journey.
Yes. And guys, if you get a chance, please check out her book. It is on the market. It's on Amazon. And guys, if you got civilians out there and you're looking for something that can help them understand what it's like working in a correctional facility, even before they go in. Unions too, if you need something for civilians. We do have the Civilian Corrections Academy. It's out there. And we also have, and it's been a while for him, we have Gary York. What's up, Gary?
Hello, Anthony. Thanks a lot for inviting me on the show today. I appreciate it. Yes, I'm showered and I'm done outside with the cattle. I have been doing a few YouTubes on my true prison stories. I think I did 2 last week. I get about 1 YouTube up about every 8 days in between the other things I'm doing. Just finished my 4th book on corrections. This one is with a traditional publisher. My other 3 I self-published through Amazon. I had a traditional publisher pick me up, so they're doing the editing now and sending it back and forth. And so I get a break this time, and I can actually sit back and let them do the work on the editing, and they're going to do the cover. Now, the only bad thing about it is they set the pricing. I set my pricing to try to be affordable. I don't know what price they're going to set it at, but I'll let everybody know when that book is out. And appreciate you having me on the show. And the topic you have today, we see people ask that question all the time.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a fun topic. And guys, by the way, little self-promotion here. I have Inmate Manipulation Decoded. That's out in the market. That's actually, they're going to have a link to that in the description. That's actually doing very well. And then I have a book I'm working on now, The Daily Reader. I'm in mid-March, so I'm doing stuff day by day. And I, like Gary, I'm motivated. I just don't know what it's going to cost yet until it's done. It's going to be a big book, but I do want this book to be hardcover because I'm expecting the book to be frequented a lot. So I think sometimes soft covers, it ruins the bind in the back. Also, guys, if you get a chance, I will be in Long Beach sometime in, I think it's like around May 21st or something. I'll be doing the keynote for an American Jail Conference. And then me and Connie are going to be teaming up in Atlantic City at MASCA that following Wednesday or Thursday. We'll figure it out. But May 23rd or May 24th, whatever the date is. So we got a couple events coming our way. I think it's going to be fun. I'm excited. And now that we've done all this, and we're 8 minutes into the video, let's get going to the topic. So, you know what? This question came to me because last week, me and Russ did a live show, and someone had asked in the comments, they said, Gangi, what was it like to switch from custody to admin? And I was like, what's funny? We never even did a topic like that before. So I did engage in a little bit. I kind of let them know what the differences are. And then as I'm telling them this, I'm sitting here like, man, I wish I knew all this stuff going in. Because now I'm like, kind of like, yeah, these things are a lot different. And how many times do I find myself sometimes wishing I could go back? Even though it's only for a moment, I tend to get my bearings and move forward. But I do know that each one of us has had milestones in our career. I mean, entering the profession's a milestone, moving up for me as a sergeant, then moving into admin, then moving to another, facility in the position I'm in now as, second in charge. Those are different milestones. And I think each one of those requires, a good sense of advice coming your way. Like, I mean, what are you getting into at each step you're taking in your career? And I figure, now that I'm looking back and I've kind of evolved a little bit, and I know definitely Connie and Gary have, maybe we would see what advice would we give ourselves before we entered the profession and before we moved up. So again, for Connie, it's, on the medical side, then moving up all the way to the admin side of medical. I mean, that's a hell of an accomplishment. Not many people reach that. And then you have Gary, who was an officer, worked his way through multiple parts of corrections, including investigative division, and I believe parole. So each one of those things are a unique milestone. And I'm just wondering, looking back, what will we have told ourselves? So starting off first, and guys, if you're new or you're looking to move up, this topic is going to cover a whole mess of stuff because, again, it's part of our journey. So I'll start with Connie first, go to Gary, then myself. But let's kind of talk about, you get a chance to talk to your rookie self on day one, entering a correctional facility, a jail, a prison, whatever it is. What are some of the tips you would tell your rookie self? So Connie, let's go first. What are some of the tips you would tell your rookie self on day one?
I think I might have told my rookie self to go back home. Like, I mean, you just, because you don't know, right? Like, especially as a civilian, I think, as an officer, you may have some insights into what to expect, right? To like, it's the criminal element of the world, right? As a civilian, I had no idea what that was. So, I mean, in all honesty, I would have probably done some research, right, about Rikers Island and read the news to understand what was happening in the landscape, right? So I could really know what I was getting myself into. I think also, too, I would have taken some time to get to know other departments, right? So when I first started, I was so focused. I think because one, I was like nervous. I was uncertain of the environment. I was uncertain of everything, right? So I kind of just was laser focused on my tasks, right? Like the task of programming and what services were in the community and what services did they need in order to get out into the community. So when you're so myopic, you don't necessarily get like the global picture of what's happening around you. And so it took me some time to figure out like I couldn't work in isolation, right? Like I needed to connect with pharmacy to understand like the medication requirements. I needed to make sure they had meds and prescriptions before they left. I needed to branch out because I started out as a discharge planner, not as an administrator. And so knowing that I needed to bridge that divide, like, because discharge planning was new at the time. So there was no true relationship with mental health and with medical and I mean, certainly over the years that has evolved and we need each other, right? Like we don't work in isolation, but I was kind of head down, just trying to get the work done. And I feel like I may have missed some opportunities to really establish strong working relationships with folks who would have been really important to know during that time. And I think the other thing, I mean, there's tons of stuff I think, in hindsight, like I could have done this thing, right? But I think I would have been more intentional about my learning process and my growth, right? Like, so it was kind of like, oh, there's a training available if you want to take it, right? And usually I'm like, I got work to do. I don't have time to go take that. But I feel like it is, if I had taken some of those trainings, I probably would have moved up quicker. I mean, I moved up within 9 months, which was already quick enough. But I think because I wasn't really in tune with the environment, there was ways that I was missing some key lessons because I was focused on this one thing. And, I would tell my rookie self to truly be tuned into what's happening around me. I think that after my first couple of weeks, I realized that I needed custody. And so it wasn't just about discharge planning anymore. It was intentional building relationship with custody. But I probably should have did that as soon as I got in there because, they were willing to give me information. I just didn't ask for it. So there's just a couple of things. I mean, I think there's probably way more. But, as we learn, then we realize like, oh, yeah, you could have done that differently. Right. Because there was even a captain who said, hey, listen, if you want to sit down and go through the policies, I can go through them with you. And I didn't think I needed to know them at the time. Right. It was like, oh, I don't need that. But like he knew that I needed it. He was just offering and I didn't take him up on it until later on when I figured out, oh, I need that.
Mm. Well, what's funny, Connie, I think that a lot of people, when they enter this profession, some may see it as a job, some may see it as a career. And I think that perspective does matter. I think one is if you see it as a job, you're kind of passive maybe. But if you see it as a career, you're intentional.
Right.
So when that captain comes up and says, let me show you some policies, maybe job mindset would be like, all right, I'll just take a look, see where, but intentional is like, yeah, I want to see it. I mean, I would actually be asking the captain, hey, can you got policies that I could take a look at? But I think that technically sums up a lot of what I also would have done or told myself as a rookie coming into this profession. But before I dig in a little bit more about me, I wanted to get Gary's thoughts because Gary has a different journey with his career as well. So I think this is great. Gary's been a rookie a few times. I mean, not just at, as an officer, but also as an investigator, as a parole officer. I mean, so he's entered the profession a few times. So Gary, so let's take the first part of your journey first. What would you tell your rookie self when I believe you were you a correctional officer first?
Yes.
So what would you tell your
Yes.
rookie self?
The 4 rookie periods I had was I got out of the military and went in and became a correctional officer. Knew nothing about it. And just because coming out of the military, you hear a lot of folks say they're going to be the best. It's not necessarily so. Of course, I think the military folks have a little head start, but I didn't know anything about corrections just because I came out of the military. So I'm a rookie. Then I went to probation and parole, was a rookie again. And then I went to the prison inspector's office, the IG office, and was a rookie again. And the last 12 years of my career, I switched over to the county jail, the Polk County Sheriff's Office, and was a rookie for the 4th time. So I've been a rookie 4 times, enjoyed going through every one of those phases. I just told myself I knew that I enjoyed challenges, so I didn't fear the new. And I just want to give advice to the folks out there. Do not fear the new. Go with the flow and be a self-mentor by being positive. Get a positive attitude. And I told myself, listen, I'm going to go in here, as I did with each one of the career steps, with a positive attitude, and I'm going to learn everything I can. And I told myself that I want to go in and follow instructions. Okay. I'm not in the military anymore as a staff sergeant with my own squad. Now I'm the rookie slick sleeve correctional officer. I walk in and the major approaches me. Now, this is before I went to the academy. They had us following the lead of other correctional officers for about 5 weeks before we went to the academy. And she threw a big book down on the table. It was chapter 33 of the Florida Department of Corrections Policies and Procedures. And she said, sit there, read that until I find who I'm going to pair you up with. And I sat there all that first day for 8 hours just reading policies and procedures. Now, just to help you out a little bit, if you're new coming into this career, don't take that. Don't be sensitive. If somebody throws a big book on the table and puts you in a room and says, read that, and you don't see them for the rest of the day, just do it. Just read the policies and procedures. Believe me, there's a method behind their madness, and they're going to get to you and get you on track. But I would say to my rookie self today, go in with a positive attitude. Don't be sensitive when you're told what to do. Don't be sensitive if you feel like you've been ignored all day. If they gave you a big book to read, read the thing. Read the policies and procedures. You probably won't understand a lot of it at the very beginning until you actually get out, get trained, get to work with it, ask questions. And also be willing to listen. I would tell my rookie self, listen, and don't do all the talking. Listen to the people that are training you. Can you imagine me coming out of the Army as a staff sergeant, trying to act like I know what I'm doing in corrections? You have to listen to the corrections people who know what's going on. Let them train you and ask questions if you don't understand. And those are the best pieces of advice I can give you. And one more thing. If you run into negative people along the way in your first rookie year, ignore that negativism. Get away from the negative people. Stick with the positive people. Stick with the people who are willing to work with you, help you, and train you with a positive attitude.
Yeah, I love that. I think for me, I actually came in with a pretty good mindset. I think after doing the academy for 4 or 5 months, I knew this was going to be a career, and I wanted to be intentional. So I did give myself a little pep talk. I basically said, "Hey, before you go in, remember who you are. Stick to your core values. That doesn't have to shift. If you have good core values, you can build on that. You don't have to change them." And be intentional with your growth so you know where you want to be. I mean, at the very beginning, you're going to try different things, so don't get discouraged because, it's good to try it to see if it's for you. And if you don't get it, okay, it is what it is, but it's better than not trying and then just, never knowing if that could have been a possibility for you. I would also tell myself that I have to agree with Gary and Connie too, is that there's people there with experience. I don't, what's funny is when I came in, I don't know if I truly valued at first what it meant when someone said they had 10 years in the profession or 15 years. I just saw them as, okay, another CO. But as I've gotten older in this profession and I see what time can do and truly, through evaluated experiences, what can be developed and shared, I have a lot more respect for those that even have a year in more than me or whatever it is, because it's a year more of experiences. So definitely letting people know that, if you talk to somebody, even if they have a day more, listen to what they have to say, because a day more of experience behind the wall is still a day more than you have. And obviously everybody has a set of different experiences. Now, one other thing is I would tell rookies, don't be afraid to ask why things are done. A lot of us are so focused on what and how, but I think it's the why that matters. So don't forget to ask those that are training you, that are teaching you the way of the world here in corrections, is why do we do things that way? And again, don't be afraid to ask questions, but please get that question out. Why really matters. It connects you personally to the person who's teaching you, but truly does have everlasting value. So, and one last thing, enjoy the moment you're in. Uh, you know, don't be so focused on, if I'm coming into this profession, but I have a feeling that I'm going to do something else with my career. So I'm just going to go ahead and get through this. And then one day I'm going to be this. Don't, just enjoy the moment. Maybe you'll be a police officer later down the line. I get it, but you're not a police officer now. So if you're going to come in, treat this as a career. And if there's somewhere you're going to be tomorrow, that's fine, but don't minimize the moment you're in right now. Because I know a lot of people that are so focused on tomorrow that they really gain no true value from today, because all they want is, I'm going to be police, I'm going to be police, I'm going to be police. Well, what did you learn in corrections? It doesn't matter because tomorrow I'm going to be police. No, it does matter, because no matter where you go, there's a lot of stuff that you can learn here that you can take with you if you choose not to make this a career. Again, I'm very big on not thinking one's a higher move than the other. It's just a choice that you make. For me, it's a lateral. But again, that's some of the things I would tell my rookie self. Now, having said that, we have had other journeys in our careers, so what I'm doing is I'm counting the milestones that matter, because usually the milestones are what we remember. So for me, my first milestone, again, career-wise, would be when I made sergeant in 2011. And after working with females for 8 years and change, I crossed over into a male facility. So I'll come back to me, but I just want to say that next milestone will be moving up. So Connie, what would be your first milestone in your career in corrections?
I think the first milestone was being promoted to health services manager. That if I could tell myself anything at that time, it would be not to worry about whether or not my peers are going to respect the promotion. I think there was some concern initially when I took the promotion about, like, I worked with these people and now I have to manage them. This is going to be very difficult. And I mean, I don't think I overly, I was overly concerned about it, but I think it was wasted energy, right? Like, I think I could have spent that valuable time learning more about the human resource side of things. Like, it was my first official time of managing people. So I went from managing only myself and my career to managing the careers essentially of 6 people, which I'm glad it was a small amount of people, because at that time, I was just learning. I was learning the principles of leadership. I was open to learning the HR side of things, like what does that employee life cycle look like? And, you know, what are all the things that fall into the responsibility? So in addition to sort of learning the safety security side of things, learning the medical operation, learning the mental health operation, learning at the time we had a program called Keep. They were the ones who sort of managed all of the methadone maintenance in the facility. So it was like learning all of that stuff and learning the administrative side of things, like on the back end, like how do you handle confidential information? How do you do coachings? How do you do counseling sessions? Understanding the union contract and what were my obligations to the union members, right? Because they were members. I was no longer in the union when I became a manager. So understanding that shift and adjusting the relationship with the union accordingly, right? Because I was at a point a union delegate. And so there was a way that the union was still trying to leverage the relationship with me that they had as working alongside them as union delegate. Now I'm a manager, right? And so I think understanding the politics in all aspects of corrections, I think was something that, you know, I should have, if I could tell my brand new self as new into leadership in our world, really to have a good grasp on the bureaucracy, the politics, and how those relationships are kind of all intertwined, how they impact the way you're going to be able to navigate your career as well as navigate the facilities.
Yeah, and it's good that, hey guys, it's good that when you move up, you ask yourself the right questions before you seize that higher position. I know, like even what Connie just mentioned right now, look at all the responsibilities that was added onto her plate. Now, even though you move up, there may be some immediate things you're letting go of to some extent, but you're also adding a lot to your plate. And was lucky for me was I had a senior officer. It's in one of my videos I did. Because when I wanted to move up, I was literally moving up for the wrong reason. I didn't want certain people becoming my boss. I mean, it was just, that was my, even though I knew this was a career for me, don't get me wrong, I was trying to look to the left and right. I was so focused on other departments that I wasn't looking to just make the rank in my own department. But eventually it got to the point where I wasn't getting the stuff to the left and right. So I said, well, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and do this, because if I don't start doing this, there are going to be certain people that are going to become my boss that I don't want to have as my boss. So I didn't make rank until 8 years and change. And part of it also was the fact that I knew I probably wouldn't be at the same facility. That was another thing. And working with females and having to go working with men, which really wasn't that big of a transition for me. But someone did say, Gangi, before you go out for this, or before you really, are you ready to take responsibility of other people? And I thought that was a really good question to ask. And then I went ahead and was comfortable with that answer. And then having that become my motivation really wasn't much, really helped me out when I got promoted, because at that point, that was my main thing. So I hung on to that throughout my whole time as a sergeant, even till today in administration, as the areas of responsibility have grown. You are going to be responsible for the people in your charge. So, for me, that question asked by that senior officer would have been something that I hope is asked of anyone who's crossing into a supervisory position. Are you willing to take responsibility of other people, of other people's work and efforts? And what I mean by responsibility, guys, is obviously the success is theirs. You give that up. But when it comes to their failures, you step up and you take responsibility of that as a team leader, and you look to be constructive and help build them. So again, it's not something that most people do or want to do, but it's something you have to do if you start moving into the supervisory position and you want to be serious with this position. Hey, Gary, out of curiosity, I know that you've kind of, moved around a bit in your career, but some of the positions that you went, obviously even lateral, could be looked at as a promotion. So what would be some of the things that you would have told yourself before crossing over into that next department?
Well, my first milestone from correctional officer was we got 10% pay raise every time we moved up. So I moved from correction officer to a felony probation officer. And I had to ask myself, some of the guys at the prison would tell me too, are you ready to dig into all that paperwork? Because you're going into a ton of paperwork. And I said, yes, I'm ready. I want to try this out. And so when I became a probation officer, I had to ask myself, going back into another rookie position now, do I want to do all this paperwork? We had to write violation reports. We had to do our own warrants. We didn't sign them. We had to get them typed up to take to the judge. We had to do our own affidavits now, arrest affidavits. So whenever we had to do a violation, you got a lot of paperwork to take care of. And then you take it to the judge, and the judge signs a warrant, and then you go out and pick up the offender. So the goal is not to arrest these people on probation, but unfortunately, it seems like that's what we do quite often. The goal is to try to get those offenders on the right track. And I was happy to say that some of them completed probation successfully, but the majority did not. Then I got promoted to community control. So then I had to ask my rookie self again, do I want to do this? Because now community control is a higher risk inmate, and I'm not going to be doing regular hours. I have to be up at all hours of the night. I have to do weekends, go out and check on them at 2 a.m. with surprise visits. And I accepted that challenge and moved up another 10% to community control officer. Back then they called it probation officer 2. So that was my first milestone, and I was able to see a different aspect of the Florida Department of Corrections, a different side of the house. And I enjoyed it. So my rookie self is telling you folks out there, if you want to do something else and see what it's like, and you really feel you want to do it, do it. Don't be afraid to do it.
Right now, as we mentioned, the milestone for myself was a promotion. I never really had any laterals. Every time I moved up, it was literally moving up. And one of the things that I mentioned just prior, but I want to kind of elaborate on now, is going to another facility when I made rank. I was a little nervous about it at first. I would tell myself, don't be nervous about it, because it is a very smart move. Because I remember Connie had mentioned something that was very on point as well, where you have to supervise people that you know or that you knew as peers. And that could be hard, because again, maybe they have expectations for you. I don't know. I mean, usually if you keep yourself on the straight and narrow, they should know what to expect of you when you are in that position. But having said that, remembering your roots, I have it in my upcoming book coming out. Maybe it could be a great way to say, hey, remember your roots. It's something great to evolve from. Or maybe people utilize it to hold you back. Hey, I know you're going to do this, so remember your roots. And it's like, wow. So for me, when I went to the new facility, they only knew me as a supervisor. So I was pretty much able to embrace the role as a supervisor without any worry of people trying to pull me back into something, because we were connected as peers. So going to the other facility, I think, was really a good idea. I know some people are like, well, you should stay at the same facility because, being a supervisor in someplace new, it's like you're a rookie all over again. Yeah, but there's other added bonuses when you go to another facility. It gives you a chance to embrace the role of being a supervisor, because the people around you may only know you as a supervisor. Now, don't get me wrong, there could be people that may come in later that worked with you as peers, maybe through transfers or whatnot, but they have to adapt to the role now, because the environment's fitted for you. So when they come in, if everybody sees you as a supervisor, they have to now adapt, as opposed to you having to adapt. So I think going to the new position gave me a chance to embrace being what a supervisor is about, which is, taking the responsibility and, if I had to handle some discipline, not to feel conflicted about it. Now, granted, at least that's at first, because eventually it's going to happen. You're going to have discussions with people that you were peers with, and maybe they're not doing what's supposed to be done. And you're going to have a dialogue, and you have to remember something. And guys, this is another advice I would tell you moving up and having that responsibility, is that you can't let your emotions drag the team down, which means, hey, me and Connie are close, but let's say Connie's not doing something she's supposed to be doing. If I don't step up and do my job as a team leader, Yeah, me and Connie's relationship remained, but my team is dead because they're picking up the slack. So, and it's not an easy decision to do. It's not easy even if you've done it 100 million times. Sometimes it's not even easy uh, being punitive with someone you don't know really, until you became a supervisor. But with that said, it's stuff that you have to do. So I would just tell myself it's not that bad to go to a new facility and really give yourself a chance to embrace the role as a supervisor at first, without people trying to hold you back. It's tougher for jails because obviously you're very limited as where you can go. But if given the option, I would take that option. So don't be afraid of, well, if I become rank, I have to go someplace new. It turns out to be a very good gift. And actually, just to reiterate on that, going back to Connie and Gary, Connie, let me get your thoughts on that too, because I know you've went through different facilities, moved up, and kind of was able to try the higher position at a new facility. I know Gary has moved around a little bit too. I mean, isn't there somewhat of a benefit of people only seeing you in that position as opposed to trying to, hey, Connie, we work together and maybe you can do this for me?
Absolutely. I mean, so the higher position I had, I was not only moving to another facility, but I was moving to another state. And so there was I think there was a healthy level of uncertainty that the receiving facility had, right? Like, because here it was, I was coming in new. All they knew is that I was coming from Rikers Island. I had already been there for 10 years, so I wasn't new. And I think there's a level of she's coming from New York, right? Like, which I was like, listen, I'm just like a regular person. Just because I'm coming from New York doesn't mean that there's an edge, right? I mean, I was less inclined to, like, I wasn't nervous to speak to people. I didn't really care, like, if there were relationships that were already established, like that wasn't really my concern. I honestly thought that the benefit of coming in new is that you have the ability to shake things up without necessarily knowing that you're doing that, right? Like, because if something just isn't the way you know it should be, you don't have the history of why it got that way. You don't have an attachment to the person who might have made the change, like all those things that sort of stay in place because this person did it, right? Like, it was kind of like, why do we do that? So there's like, I think honestly, there's just a lot of benefit in coming in new, being able to have fresh eyes, ask the fresh questions that other people who've been there a long time are like, yeah, I'm not getting into that because such and such a what, right? Like they don't want to touch that issue. And then I think it's also the coming in new allows you to see how things had been done differently, right? Like now you have something to compare it to, whether you did it great where you were or you could do it better because you see that there's a process in place here that's just more efficient. It kind of just gives you more information to be better as, a manager. So I think there's a ton of benefit of going to a new place when you move up.
Yeah, I like that. Like, don't be afraid to make yourself uncomfortable. I mean, that's the key because growth is supposed to be uncomfortable. So, I know a lot of people are like, well, I don't want to move up because I'm going to lose weekends or I'm going to have to go to another facility. Yeah, but guys, trust me, it all works itself out. And, you want to kind of stretch out of your comfort zone. So, and I'm going to tell you something, guys, when you go to retire and you're looking back, wondering what you've done with your career, the question of why I didn't want to lose weekends or the question of I didn't want to go to another facility, they're not going to hold enough weight for you to be happy with the choices of not moving up and growing in this profession. Again, if you had it in you to want to grow and you were intentional with it, the excuse of wanting to remain where you're at is opposite of what it is that you're saying you want to accomplish. So it's like, well, I want to move up, I want to do this, and I want to do that, but I don't want to go to another facility or I don't want to lose my weekends. Well, then you don't want to move up. I mean, there's no ifs and buts about it. If you want to move up, then none of that's going to matter. You're going to move up. I mean, granted, for me, I want to move up. And I'm riding an hour 40 a day to work, an hour 40 back, 3 hours on the road, But again, if I didn't do it, I would probably kick myself in the ass because for me, I want to move up. So having said that, if you want to move up, then you want to move up. You don't give yourself excuses for not moving up. if that makes any sense. Hey, Gary, just I know I kind of wanted to touch on that with basically kind of stretching out of your comfort zone, and because you said it before too, try something new. I mean, how does that phrase play out into literally going into a new environment and making the adjustments even in a supervisory position?
Well, when I tried something new, the next level I went to, I was promoted to senior prison inspector from community control officer in probation and parole. And then that sent me to a whole new environment. That put me in the regional office in Tampa. And now I'm in a different ball game. So now I'm in a regional office in Tampa, being assigned criminal, administrative, and civil investigations within the Florida Department of Corrections. And I'm going all over the state to different prisons and different probation and parole, because we covered the probation and parole and the prisons if anything came up that needed to be investigated. So I'm going to all these new places, driving across all over the state of Florida, spending many hours in the state vehicle, driving from here to Miami doing cases, from here to North Florida doing investigations. And I'm also doing investigations in my old prison and in probation and parole. So you have to be willing to give up your time. Now, in that job, I was also on call every 7th week for 7 days in a row and 24 hours on call. So now you have to be willing to say, I'm going to take this job, but it's going to take up a lot of my time. It's going to take up a lot of my free time. But if you're not willing to give up your free time, you don't want to. If you want to be a Monday through Friday worker, go somewhere else, because corrections, in my opinion, is not the place. You're not going to be a Monday through Friday worker in corrections if you're going to move either up to supervisor position or up to different levels of the administration. So if you're going to move up, get ready. You're going to give up time. So you have to think about that. And that's what I did. And I did that for 12 years, and I'm glad I did it. Because as Anthony said, had I not accepted that position as senior prison inspector, I would probably be kicking myself in the butt right now.
Yeah, and you know what? Even if we're saying moving up, we also could mean just growth and development as well. Because, I mean, think about it. 25 years in a career, probably minimal. I'm sure a lot of people do more than that. But let's just say on a standard, I'm probably generalizing it out. But on a standard, I mean, you want to grow. I hope you do. So, I mean, staying in one place, I think even staying in one place could be uncomfortable. It's like, eventually, you start to look back and say, man, what have I really done? Now, granted, don't get me wrong. For some people, this is just a job, and maybe there's other things that they pursue. I get it. This is for the people that have chosen this as a career. And, you want to choose to, let's say, move up or grow. Let's just say grow, because that is intentional. That does require sacrifices. It does. I mean, it really does require stepping out of your comfort zone and, embracing something new, even if that means, going to another facility. And I mean, to be honest with you, sometimes when I look at people and I wonder how they got the position, one of the things I look at that a lot of people don't look at is the sacrifices that they could have made. Now, some people may say, oh, this person was given this position. All right, maybe, but this is like their 5th prison. I think that could be a sacrifice. So I don't know if we ever ask ourselves that. Like, when you get somebody moving up, do we ourselves look at that person and say, wow, what sacrifices have they made to secure that position? Again, maybe it was given, who knows? But in the process, I'm sure that there were certain sacrifices that they made that took them out of their comfort zone. Now, one last thing.
Can I add to that?
Oh, yeah, again.
So the thing that makes me think about, so prior to moving up, one of the things that, as you talk about different facilities, that my manager saw in me was that I was willing to work at other facilities. So on Rikers, I ended up covering like 4 or 5 different facilities within a period of time. And it's really difficult because each facility, no matter where you are, has its own culture. But specifically on Rikers, like you may have like the mental health facility that's like what they do. You may have like, so I was with the sentenced males, then I was with the males, then I was at West facility where they have chronic diseases. So like I think the willingness to go to different places, to be uncomfortable, right? To kind of get pulled out your comfort zone is really like a big part of your growth, which we may not realize it in the moment, but others see it in you that you're willing to step out and take the risk, right? And to sacrifice your comfort, maybe to sacrifice the relationships, right? Because in each facility, in order for things to kind of run, like you got to have a pretty decent relationship with custody. So when you move around, like people don't really get to know you as well as if you've been in that one place for a long time. And so like, you know, I just had to say that like that aspect of moving around and the sacrifices that people make in order to grow, in order to step up, in order to move into those growth positions. Like I think that's something that we don't want to skip over.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was a great part because it is a sacrifice, and I think a lot of people may not realize that. And again, for me, it was a sacrifice at first, but now it's not. I mean, having worked at 4 facilities, it just becomes more of an opportunity or a challenge that you want to step up to. Now, okay, so got one more milestone, and maybe we could figure out a way to kind of pull this all together, but. So again, when I became a supervisor, it was my first time taking responsibility of others. So that was a bit of a journey for me. And again, what I thought would be one of the hardest transitions I would ever have to make, and then going to the other facility and learning things as a supervisor in a whole new facility. So I'm being responsible for people in a facility I know nothing about and people I do not know. But with that said, again, crossing into that supervisory position, definitely something that was unique for me. But when I crossed into admin, now I'm jumping to a whole different department, and kind of leaving something behind as I journey into something new. So yes, I'm still in charge of people, but I'm also in charge of or responsible for things I don't have experiences in. Like I'm facilitating the needs of departments that I know very little about, but I have to go ahead and get myself on my A game and really learn what these departments are about. So I guess for the next question, and I'll start with Connie, is, for like, I guess like a last milestone, we'll kind of like, because I don't know, I'm pretty sure there's got to be one more here, Connie. But when it comes to reaching that highest level of your career, which like, okay, this is it. This is where I'm going to be. This is where I'm going to ride it out. This is my last stop. Again, it's not about position, guys. Just at one point, don't get me wrong, we continue to grow. Don't get me wrong, I get it. But eventually the journey is going to come to an end. And in the process of growth, you also have to start to think, okay, what am I going to do after this? How am I going to take everything that I've learned here and maybe do something with? I mean, that's why I started Tier Talk, to get the engines going. Gary has still continued to be truly effective in all the stuff he's doing, authoring books and doing a YouTube channel, and he's long out of the profession. And Connie, the same thing, still continuing to devote, because I think in the process, Connie, when she was moving up to these other areas of her life, she found a way to intertwine her personal and professional, and to be extremely successful, because not only is she successful as a businesswoman and as an advocate for the profession, but she's also successful in her service to others. So for Connie's milestone, and then for Gary's as well, I would say for Connie, it's crossing into the author, crossing into the business, where you get to represent the profession, but at a whole different level. And for Gary, becoming that author and that YouTube influencer. So Connie, what was it like for that other milestone when you crossed into that Civilian Corrections Academy, and what was that transition like? And what would you tell yourself, before you started it, this is what you need to do?
So that was a very difficult transition. I think that there was some tug of war, some internal tug of war that took place. Like, is this what I really want to be doing? Like, are you doing the right thing? Are you doing the things for the right reasons? Right. Like, so I think one of the last experiences I had when I was in facility was walking someone out. And it was awful. It was an awful experience. It wasn't the first time that I had to walk someone out. But it was a difficult one. Like, you know, when you have like a good employee, like you just can't imagine. You just can't imagine. And I feel like there's a time where we just stop getting shocked by stuff. It's like, you know, but in this instance, I was just so taken back. And so I always remember, like, how did this even happen? I remember being just so baffled, right? Like, I'm very in tune, my ears to the ground, like all of this, right? And somehow I know it's not my fault, but you also feel like you missed something. Like, was there something that I didn't see in that person that they would be compromised? Was there something that, you know, that was a telltale sign that, you know, I was so in the busyness of like running things like that, I missed it. And I just couldn't come up with that thing. And so I just, because of that experience, towards the end of sort of that internal journey, I was like, there's got to be something you can do. And I think sometimes we're so ingrained in the process or in our work that we can't see a solution because we're too close to the problem. And I think when I stepped out of facility and I was like, all right, I'm gonna take a breather. The process of figuring out how to provide a solution, I think, was the journey, right? It was like, okay, so that happened. And while, you know, you kind of did all you could to be of support and all this other stuff, like, because I feel like, you know, as a good mark of a leader, of a manager, is that you kind of hold yourself to a certain standard and there's an expectation you have of yourself to be of support to your staff, to like provide them with all the resources that they need in order to be successful or effective. And although I did that, this thing still happened. And so 2 months after leaving facility, I was already trying to figure out the solution. I started benchmarking, I started researching. It was literally, I want to say 10 months of research. And how do I not only come up with a viable solution to some of these very civilian specific issues, but what do I do after that? So I think that's how you know, because now this is like a labor of love. Like, I've got a job that's paying the bills, that's taking care of my insurance, that, you know, I'm still got retirement saving happening, all the goodness that just allows you to live. But here it is, in my spare time, I have now carved out time to focus on finding a solution to some of the issues that civilians have in facilities. And then it's the business process, right? It's how do you create a business, and going through just that entire journey of business creation, finding those viable solutions, understanding the digital platforms and coming up with marketing and all this other stuff. And then deciding I'm going to go back to school, which I'd already had a degree. There was no need for me to go back for another advanced degree. But I also felt that if I wanted to not only identify a great solution, I also needed to know how it could be sustainable. And I think it's, you know, not a good practice to enter into the business world without having some level of training. And for me, I didn't have much of that to begin with, other than the leadership and operational stuff I learned on the job. So I decided to go back to school, went back to school, and then took all of that and said, here is a viable solution to provide to the industry, so that, and not only was it viable, but it would be sustainable. It's something that is repeatable. I know that the content is of value, and I've reached into the industry to other industry experts to get their insights. So even if there were some gaps in my knowledge that maybe I think I know it, but I'm not sure, being able to contact you and Russ and Gary, I talked to other folks who are in the industry for a long time, to medical folks, to military folks, just to make sure that this solution for civilians encompassed everything that our environment sort of was made of.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you something, Connie. Obviously you've taken a lot of the environment, like, even though you physically left corrections, you know, corrections has not left you, and I think that's where your passion, your drive, your commitment, because I think you still see yourself as that rookie civilian going into a world that they know very little about, and using your experiences to balance out that initial impression. Because to be honest with you, you could have good people wanting to go in this profession, but get so nervous because maybe they don't have the answers that can comfort them, and then we lose them. So I think part of it is, let me give you some of the answers so it's not that scary. And at that point, when you do make a decision to stay or go, it's more informed, because I do believe that people leave when they don't have an understanding of what it is that they're getting into. But I think that's what your training does. Hey, Gary, just out of curiosity, Gary, same thing. You crossed into being an author. You've been out of the profession for quite some time. Crossing into that milestone, you left the profession. Now it's like, well, what do I do? So what would you tell yourself, I guess, when you're done with the profession? Because I know now you're an author and got all these other stuff, and you probably didn't know you were going to do all this. I don't know if this was something that just came out of a whim, but what would you tell yourself on the last day on the job?
On the last day of the job, I would say to anybody, and like I told myself, and my wife and I both retired in 2018. So next month will mark our 4th year of retirement. And make sure that you tell yourself, have I gotten to the point where I need to be to where I can retire and pay my bills and live comfortably? It's not what you have, it's how comfortable you are. Make sure you're comfortable and make sure you're happy. If you leave corrections and you say, that's it, I don't want to have anything to do with it again, that's fine. Some people do that. They go on and they're done with it. If you still have a part of you that's attached to corrections, like me and other people who are retired that are out there, then you can do things to stay attached to corrections. You can become a corrections consultant. You can teach classes at your academy. We have retired guys right now making here, I don't know what you make other places, $26 an hour teaching at the academy. You can write articles. I write articles for corrections1.com. You can do a YouTube. You can do you can write a book. Whatever you want to do, make it part of your life. I believe Connie said, I've carved out extra time where I can fit it in. Well, that's what I've done. And it kind of keeps me attached. And I think the milestone of retirement for me is working for, of course, family first and working on the farm. And then I've carved out some time to do a video once a week and write an article once a month. And here's what I like to do. Here's why I do it. And Anthony knows why, and Connie knows why, because they get the same kind of things. When you get a message from somebody in another state, hey, we're using your article on our training. Hey, that YouTube you did on this or that, we're showing that to our folks at briefing, or we're showing it to them at training. Hey, I'm doing that stuff for free. Keep my mind going. But if I can help somebody, or you get a call like Anthony and Connie do from somebody that's a rookie or just going into the profession, and they ask you for some advice, hey, makes you feel good. Okay. Nobody's getting rich off this stuff, but it makes you feel good.
You're mute.
Mute. Yeah, too late. Gary, you're late. And Connie got the shot on that one. It's fair because I cracked the joke at the beginning, and guy waited to the end to full circle that one. So hey, and it was funny for a brief second, Guy. I thought you were going to name everyone that ever retired in corrections.
I almost named a couple, and I said, you know what, we'll just let me don't get into that.
Like the. Hey, so Gary and Connie, you guys really hit on something that I want to elaborate on, because to me it is very important. So I'm always going to continue to grow, but my journey is going to be completed one day. And what I mean by that is not my growth, but my journey in this profession. So for me, when I crossed into admin, unbeknownst to myself at the time, I was putting myself in a position to complete my journey. I would like to think that I would start off as an officer, and maybe one day, even if it's for a year, who knows, is to be the warden. As I said, I'm one below it now, so I'm assuming it's inevitable because again, you don't put somebody in a position like this unless you're willing to put them into that number one. But for me, don't get me wrong, I'm still continuing to grow, but this could be my completed journey. And I think because I've connected myself to this profession, I need that position. Besides the fact that I want it, I just need that position to kind of be credible with the impact that I'm trying to create. Okay. I want to create an impact at the highest level. I want to teach leaders how to lead. And I can't do that, at a very primary level. I know I have to move up as far as I can go because, again, the big thing to teach a leader how to lead is about sacrifices that have to be made. So I have to make sacrifices, and you will see that in my in my resume or whenever it is, asking me to work in an event, hey guys, this is where I'm at now. This is what I've done in the past. So I think for me, the credibility comes from, again, the sacrifices I made to secure the higher position, which is always taking myself out of the comfort zone. So with that
Can I
said,
jump in for a second? Can I jump in?
It's only
So,
my heartfelt speech, Connie. No, but did I hit something? Did I hit something?
Yeah, so I only want to jump in because I think so. One, I don't think you always acknowledge that you're already making a major impact where you are. And so even though you want that higher position, we've yet to see folks in that higher position making the impact that you're making. And I think that's an important thing for us to recognize. And I also want, in that space of you sort of aiming, shooting for the stars, right? To not minimize just how much you've been able to do at your level. Even before you got this position, you were already connecting to people at all levels in this industry and making an impact. So I don't want us to gloss over that or skip that. The other thing I want to make sure that we're kind of all clear, like the audience as well, is that no matter where you are, you lead from your position, right? You can lead from wherever you are. And so you don't have to wait until you become warden in order to make an impact. If there's something you're passionate about, there's something you want to do, you're feeling empowered, or you know that you can go to your leadership or your admin and say, here's some things you want to do. There are very few instances that I can think of that an admin is going to tell you, no, I don't want you to be great, right? Like they're going to tell you, no, I don't want you to do anything extra. I want you to just do exactly what you're told, right? And so I just want us to be able to walk away knowing that no matter where you are in the profession, in the industry, in your title, whatever your role is, that you can always make an impact and you can always be that person who's that change agent in your facility.
Yeah, and by the way, guys, Connie, this is a great way to end Tier Talk. I've reached it. I'm done. Connie's final remarks. This will be the last Tier Talk episode because I can only go downhill from here, Connie. Thanks. Now I have nothing to shoot for. Well, I'm humbled by that. I appreciate that. And but guys, ultimately, that's what it is. I'm going to make my mark. And Connie's right. I don't want to. You could be a leader from any position. Don't get me wrong, guys. You could. But can I tell you something? If people want to follow somebody, they have to be intentional with that. And for me, I could be influenced by people below me, around me, whatever. But that takes a different type of individual to allow someone from a lower rank to have influence on them. There's not that many of us. I'm one of them. Gary is kind of. I mean, that's where we're at because we know that influence can come from all around. But with that said, in some cases, when you start moving up, you could be dealing with some insecure individuals. So when you go to have an impact, it's really not that bad of an idea to establish some level of credibility because, to be honest with you, those are the people that you want to get to the most. And it's sad to say, but those are the people that don't even take the courses. But with that said, I do want to backpedal a little bit and say Connie's 100% correct. The position doesn't make the leader. For the most part, I will sit in a class for 8 hours if an officer's teaching. It doesn't matter. If there's something of power in there, I need it. I want to learn. Again, hardest thing to do, what is it? Speak truth to power. But with that said, I just want to kind of go forward and say, but it doesn't hurt to lead by example as well, and to secure these positions through sacrifices, commitment, and drive. So when you go up there and you go to kind of teach others who may have done the same, they can build a relationship with you based on the sacrifices, because it's hard for them to model off somebody who hasn't made those sacrifices and commitments. And it's just more, talk. This is what we expect from our leaders, and then you yourself not making the effort to see the challenges of what leaders go through. I mean that to me is very important. Well, so I like how Connie balanced that out for me, because you're right. I don't want to tell people that, hey, you only could be up to be a leader. That's not the case. We lead all the day, all the way around, and influence up, down, everywhere. But having said that, when it starts getting into that time where you can have a true impact on leaders, they do want to see people that have made sacrifices, have made journeys, and then in the end, this is what I've learned. Even if it's in a comparison, it doesn't matter. The point is that through these sacrifices, this is why I'm able to be up here. And even what we've committed to, Gary, Connie, the books, the shows that we've done. At the end of the day, I've had someone that said to me, that they can get anybody else because we're not unique. And it's like, okay, I get it. But you show me anybody right now that has done videos solely about corrections on YouTube, where I have almost 1,200 videos. I'm literally almost at 1,200 videos. I don't care about the views. I don't care about the subscribers. All I care about is that you see my commitment. 1,100 and something videos. So the commitment, at least I'm not motivated by views. I'm motivated because I want to get a message out. So having said that, and to be honest with you, in the course of doing almost 1,200 videos, you learn a lot passively, even if I wasn't intentional, passively. And I think that kind of, is a sacrifice in itself, because 1,100 videos, some of them over an hour, 2-3 hours. And what do I got going on right now? There's my family upstairs. But I've also made a commitment to the profession. Don't get me wrong, my family's first, obviously, my family. But so are the people in corrections. They're my family too. So my wife allows me the time to, and yes, it is what it is, allows me the time to go ahead and give back to the
I'm going to make sure she sees that part.
Well, of course you are. Hey, but that's a good thing, though. That's a good thing. I appreciate that, Connie. But having said that, because the profession has been good to us, so, to return back the favor. And then in some cases, maybe once in a while getting awarded for the effort too. That's not that bad either. But I've been doing this for years with little award. So, I mean, regardless of what's getting at the end, I would still do it. Even if nobody was paying for the message, I still find myself doing it, like Connie does and Gary does. It's just, in the end, we contribute to something greater because we still want to serve. It's still in us. We're not done yet. Hey, Gary, you have anything you'd like to say in closing?
I would just like to tell everybody, if you want to make a challenge or take a challenge, don't be afraid to take it. Don't be afraid to move to another facility. Don't be afraid to move into a position that has paperwork. If you want to do it, do it. Just want to say that heroes come in all shapes and sizes. And some of our biggest heroes are on the front line when the tough get going and the, excuse my language, shit hits the fan. And there's this one officer on the front line that takes the lead and saves a life or saves an officer's life, quells a riot, whatever. That is also a leader and a hero in my eyes. So you could be any position and be a leader and a hero.
I love that. And again, guys, that's just to be mindful that even in corrections, we have an impact at every level. I even did a video on that. So it's good to know that, when we have people in this profession, for those that may seek a higher position but don't get it, it's okay. Your impact is still there if you allow it to be. So don't get disenfranchised by every no, because in the end, you could be worried about getting a position, and 25 years later, you may never get the position. But having said that, you missed out on opportunities to create an impact on the people that were next to you, because maybe that was what your calling was. Maybe that, I mean, even if I never moved up, I would still find some calling, even if I'm working directly with the inmates. I would do something, because again, my life has to have a greater purpose. And yes, I have my family. That's one thing. And I'm happy and I'm grateful for that. But I'm a career-oriented person. So at one point, I would like to know that when I left my profession, did I leave enough? You know, did I create a legacy? I mean, that's kind of where we're at now. Connie, anything in closing?
I would just say, like, you know, every team has players, teams have leaders.
Oh, Connie.
What?
Now, you did it to me 3 times today, so I just felt, how's it feel?
Oh my God, I'm so over it. At least I was making a point and trying to make sure points.
Sorry. Okay, you can start again. I apologize.
I would just say that, you know, on every team, there's team players, there's leaders, but like everyone on the team is important. And I feel like, you know, yes, we're talking about, you know, sort of taking up the charge and being a leader in your space or in whatever you choose to do. But it's even okay if you choose not to do that, right? But you just be that soldier who is standing by the side of your brother and your sister, right? And we're all continuing to keep each other safe while we're working in this space that most people don't want to work in, right? And, you know, I give kudos to anyone who stays committed, who continues to sort of carry the torch to try to make a difference, right? Because it's easy to be, you know, I've heard it my entire career, I just want 20 and done, right? And even those who have retired that I still speak to sometimes, they're like, Connie, you still dealing with that? Why you want to be dealing with that? You know, and that's my passion, right? And I think that's the thing. We have to just be reassured that you're doing the work that you want to do, that you're driven to do, that you're passionate about. And it's not about getting the validation from outside, because the calling isn't everyone's call, right? It may just be yours. So I would just say, whatever you're doing, do the best at it and just continue to keep each other safe.
Yeah, and guys, I mean, I love that. Whatever you're doing, be the best at it. I agree. Guys, you know, you got to find purpose in what you do. And I believe that all 3 of us here at this table love this profession because we love the people that are in it. I mean, as I'm writing my book now, this book of quotes, daily reader, it's a lot of work, but there are moments when I don't even see it as work because I just love getting the message out there as long as I have a topic. That seems to be the issue right now, but I'm doing it. I'm figuring it out. But having said that, you know, it's great to know that I don't know if it's going to get realized during our lifetime, but I figure with all these videos, the books that we have coming out, whatever it is, you know, one day we may be long gone and people will speak of Gary York and Connie and Gangi and Russ and William Young and, you know, and the list goes on, Gary Cornelius, you know, so sometimes the things that we do for today are not meant for today. You know, I mean, that's pretty powerful in itself, but sometimes the things that we do for today are not meant for today. So that doesn't mean we stop trying. We just keep doing it one day. You know, hey, I'm waiting for that one day where we get the rookie that's been watching our show, and 20 years from now, he says, hey, yo, I'm awarded now. And it all started because I watched your video, or I took Connie's class in Civilian Correction Academy, or I read Gary's book on the toughest job. And, you know, it motivated me to be better. And now here I am, and I just want to say thank you. And maybe that's the goal, maybe to make one person reach their highest potential, whatever that may be. And God, that's not always by position. I want to make sure I get that out there again. Good job, Connie. As always, guys, the show is tiered. If you haven't, please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. Bell's going to notify you every time I post up a video. Stay safe.